The Miami Dolphins have parted ways with Wes Welker and Danny Crossman. It's finally on the latter, but there is some question marks on the former. We will discuss all of that. Plus, could the Miami Dolphins be in line to losing an executive and gaining some benefit from it? We will discuss that and so much more. Do me the favor, smash the like button. Subscribe if you're new. Greer and McDaniel are trying to show some changes. Is it too little, too late? We'll discuss that on this episode, sponsored by BetUS.
Loses the football. Touchdown! Got it!
You have got to be kidding me.
Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score!
Field down the near side, that open. Touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa.
Touchdown!
He's going deep. It's going over the touchdown again.
Tagovailoa trying to make it for it. Fires to the end zone. Touchdown!
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go!
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason. We're back here for another one as Reckoning Day is upon us. Oh, man, I can't wait to talk about Danny Crossman. I'm so excited about that. But before we do, shout out to everyone that's come through in the chat and that's showing some love. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you're new. It does go a long way with helping myself out and the channel. I appreciate each and every one of you showing up on this Friday. Hey, we're about to get into the weekend, and what a way to start off the weekend with the firing of Danny Crossman. So we'll talk about all that. Hurricanes fans, because I know you're out there, how do you feel? Put it in the chat, put it in the comments. How are you feeling about a $4 million nil deal for Carson Beck to come replace Cam Ward as the starter in Miami? Listen, you know, here's where I'm at with everything right now. I mean, Carson Beck's no Cam Ward, but it's going to be interesting to see how he does perform and if he shows a little bit more to his game with the Hurricanes. Yesterday, the Penn State Notre Dame game, what a finish. That fourth quarter was wild. Notre Dame pulling it off. Listen, I get the Drew Aller love. I understand the tools. I understand the traits. I think Nussmeier, with one more year under his belt next year, is going to be the better quarterback. I truly do believe that. Tyler Warren, love the kid. Probably one of the best blockers. If he was there in the second, I'd be all over it in a heartbeat. Not taking him at 13. He is not Brock Bowers. And when you look at this class, when you got guys like Fannin, Helm, I mean, you know, is Warren even going to be the first guy off, or is it going to be Colston Loveland? But you got Mason Taylor. You want to go day 3, you got Aronde Gadsden. My boy Luke Lachey's in this draft. I mean, you know, this is a decent tight end class. I think you can get someone on day 2 or day 3 at much better value. I'm pretty much locked in on, I want Will Campbell, Kelvin Banks, Malachi Starks. I'm down for Kenneth Grant. You want to trade back and take Tyler Booker. I'm down to acquire. I really want trenches on either side. And, you know, would I be mad if they said, hey, someone in the top 5, like maybe, I don't know, what if the Raiders miss out on Shedeur and they say, hey, listen, we'll trade you your draft pick for Tyreek and our 13th for us to move up so you can get whoever you draft a quarterback a weapon, and go take Tet McMillan, I'd be down for Tet McMillan. This is already known. Tet McMillan is the one weapon I like last year. Remember? Brock Bowers was the one weapon I would turn my blind eye to if they wanted to move up and go get. Tet McMillan falls under that this year because he's the prototype and he's the perfect fit for what we need opposite of whatever we're going to have speed-wise. Tet McMillan, Jalen Waddle, and Malik Washington is your top three, and building behind them makes me salivate. Now, do I think we will get Tet McMillan? Obviously, a team like the Patriots picking that high is a big threat because May needs help. But I think Vrabel is going to go. I think that's where, that could be where Abdul Carter comes off the board. The kid from Penn State that was playing so well yesterday that if you hadn't watched him until yesterday, man, you were in for a treat yesterday when you watched him for the first time. But he's probably going to be the first edge off the board. Another Penn State guy, go figure, like Micah, like Chop, etc. And he's probably going to be the first one to go off the board, and I wouldn't be surprised if Vrabel went him or Mason Graham or offensive lineman, So, instead of Tet, when they could use Tet. So, we'll see. We will see how it all works out. I think Aller's going to go back. Aller has said he was going to go back, but scouts were in attendance, and scouts are hoping that with a good performance in the playoffs, he was going to declare. I think with his performance yesterday, that's probably going to push him to go back. Paul Holland says, I love it. I love you. I love you, Paul. Paul says, reason 4 of the 5 all-pro offensive linemen would be Dolphins if you were GM. Tell him, baby. You let him know. Why is my boy saying that? Okay? I want you to remember this. Why is my boy saying that? At left tackle, who's he got? Tristan Wirfs, right? I would have moved up in 2020. They tried to move up in 2020. Right? People got to realize, why did the Bucs move up one spot with the 49ers? Because we were trying to move up for Tristan Wirfs. All right? We were offering, I believe we were offering the pick we took with Jackson. So what was that, 18-19? That 18-19th overall pick. We were offering that. I want to say a 5th rounder and another mid-rounder, and they wanted another late-round pick added to it, and we said no. We said no over, adding a late-round pick. It wasn't like they were adding for another 3rd or, 4th added to it. They wanted another late-rounder, and we basically balked at them. Anyways, Tristan Wirfs at left tackle. Creed Humphrey, everyone remembers that draft class. I lost my mind when we took Liam Eichenberg and Creed Humphrey was still on the board, right? I wanted Creed Humphrey really badly for this team. So yeah, you're right. We would have taken Creed Humphrey as well. Who else we got here when we look at it? Okay, we got Quinn Miners. yeah, Quinn Miners would be a Dolphin. Remember, I had him on the show pre-draft. Quinn Miners was looking for property in Miami. Quinn Miners, because Eric Stootsville went to Whitewater, Wisconsin as well. There was an alumni tie. And Quinn Miners was basically told we were going to take him, but what happened? All these people that want to praise Brian Flores. How'd that work out? Brian Flores took Hunter Long because he was Boston College alum, and he wanted a Boston College alum on this team, and we passed over Quinn Miners. Unbelievable. And then right tackle is Penei Sewell. So yes, if I was GM, Wirfs, Creed Humphrey, Quinn Miners, and Penei Sewell would have been on this team. Because, yeah, I would have chosen, everyone knows, Waddle was my wide receiver 1. I got Chase wrong. I admitted that as soon as it happened. I admitted that 4 years ago, so we're good on Chase. But Waddle was my wide receiver 1. And Penei Sewell was my tackle 1. Penei Sewell was, my highest graded player in that draft. And, yeah, Penei Sewell would have been my pick. 110%. I don't even got to use hindsight. I could tell you, if I was in that room, Penei Sewell would have been my pick. Now, I still will defend Waddle because I think the world of the kid. But, yeah, Penei would have been the pick. So, yeah, I would have got Wirfs. I would have got us Wirfs and Pene in back-to-back years. You're damn right, I would have. And Pene could have stuck at left. Wirfs would have stuck at right. And then, Creed Humphrey instead of Eichenberg. I would have drafted Creed Humphrey instead of Eichenberg 110%. And then I would have drafted Quinn Miners in that same draft. And so, under me, our offensive line coming out, think of what we would have got in that draft. My first 5 picks, I would have picked. Everyone knows I was defending Jalen Phillips, right? So I would have taken Jalen Phillips. He was my edge 2. I would have taken Phillips. I would have taken Holland. I would have taken Penei Sewell. I would have taken Creed Humphrey, and I would have taken Quinn Miners. That would have probably have been my draft. We wouldn't have Waddle. But our offensive line would have been Tristan Wirfs, Quinn Miners, Creed Humphrey, Robert Hunt, and Penei Sewell. That would have been your offensive line. Yeah, I would have drafted Zach Frazier this past year. Same with Mason McCormick, but I wouldn't have need to with those guys. I would have maybe had to draft one of those guys. But yeah, if I was GM, legitimately, if you go by my draft history and how the boards fell, our offensive line would have been exactly that. We wouldn't even needed Armstead. It would have been Penei Sewell, Quinn Miners, Creed Humphrey, Robert Hunt, because remember the night before we drafted Robert Hunt, me and EM did a mock draft, and Robert Hunt was one of the guys I was saying we should draft, and EM was agreeing with it too. We were on Robert Hunt the night before. And then I would have had Tristan Wirfs at right tackle. We would have had one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. Easily. Because, and you know why I would have taken it? Again, all of you that have been watching me since 2019, October 2019, when I was on the Tuesday night panel, what did I say? I don't care if you draft Burrow, Tua, Herbert, Love, Hurts. Go get me what they have in Oakland and Indianapolis. Oakland and Indianapolis were 2 of the premier offensive lines at that time. Just maulers, big maulers. The Oakland guys hadn't fall off the cliff yet. Indianapolis, Quentin Nelson was in his prime, and he had better bodies around him on the offensive line. Overall, man. And, I had this conversation yesterday, actually, with EM. What pisses me off is McDaniel comes here. Greer goes from being totally ignorant to the running back room to now he's trading third-round picks to move up and draft Jalen Wright after drafting Achane in the 3rd round the year before. But now he continues to treat the offensive line unit like he does the running back room, how he did with the running back room. Get the cheapest solution possible. I'll keep saying it until I'm blue in the face. Whoever said Liam Eichenberg is a suitable enough replacement for Robert Hunt this year, and then whoever agreed and enabled that thought, those 2 people should be fired. It's the same people that whoever suggested and then whoever enabled the thought that Robert Jones is a suitable enough contingency plan for Isaiah Wynn, who you knew had a setback in rehab, you should be fired. And those same people, whether they're the same 2 people or whether they're 4 people, I don't trust you with my offensive line. I'm going to be honest with you. Those people who made those calls, I could come in and do a better job than you, and it wouldn't even be close. That's why it says no game data. It's because of people like you in our building. I could have done a better job. Real talk. And I'm not even being arrogant. I'm not even, my head will still fit through the door when I end this show and I leave this room. I'm not being arrogant. I could have done a better job. Now, coaching them up, I'm not sitting here saying I would have coached them up. Finding the proper talent, yeah, I would have done a better job. And I'm going to tell you this right now, Dolphin fans. If I was in the room and a mother effer looked at me and said, yeah, Liam Eichenberg can be a suitable replacement for this year for Robert Hunt. And then someone said, yeah, I agree with that, blah, 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 blah. Whether it was Mike and Greer, whether it was Mike and Butch Barry, whether it was Greer and Butch Barry, whether it was Frank Smith and Greer, whoever, whatever the combination of people was. Brother, Dolphin fans, if I was in that room, I would have stood up, I would have looked those people dead straight through the windows into their souls, their eyes, and I would have said, get the f out of my building. Don't even bring that nonsense to this table. You're lucky it's not the 1800s, because I would have pulled out a leather glove and smacked a mother effer right across the face and challenged them to an old-fashioned duel. So, yeah, the fact that those decisions are being made and are being approved and enabled, and who's got the balls to step up and say no? That's a horrible idea. What are you thinking? Have you not watched him? It's the same thing. Listen, Tyler Warren. Let's go back to the tight end thing, right? We talk about all the great tight ends that are in this class, okay? I mean, you can talk about them all right? It literally doesn't matter who you name. Seriously. It doesn't matter who you name. It could be Tyler Warren. It could be Harold Fannin. It could be Mason Taylor. It could be Colston Loveland, Gunnar Helm. It don't matter. It could be Jake Briningstool. It could be Luke Lachey. It do not matter. Think about this. You want a reality check for a second? I'll give you a reality check for a second here. All you people pushing for tight end at 13 with Tyler Warren. We've got John Embry in the building. Look at his resume. This guy turned Jordan Cameron. Dolphin fans might remember we got the concussion-ridden shell of his former self version, but Jordan Cameron with the Cleveland Browns for a couple of years was very dynamic. Okay, he's worked with Tony Gonzalez. You know, he turned George Kittle into what he was. You know what I mean? When you look at Embry and all the tight ends he's worked with and developed over his tenure in the NFL, Embry has found and developed stud tight ends, okay? Frank Smith, he turned Darren Waller and converted him from wide receiver to tight end, and we know how well that is. So we got these guys with these eyes, with these ability to develop, and with these solid resumes. But what do we get in Miami? Julian Hill is the guy they stuck to. What have we got from Julian Hill, aside from some pre-snap penalties, some whiffs on blocks because he takes terrible angles? What have we got from Julian Hill? And then in turn, what did getting Julian Hill more reps, more targets mean? Durham Smythe turned into a shell of himself. Durham Smythe does not look like the same player he was 2 years ago. Okay? Tanner Connor experiment. What has that yielded? Zero effing results. Nothing. Okay? Jonnu Smith. I'm not going to give you props for Jonnu Smith. Why am I going to give you props for Jonnu Smith? I had Omar Kelly up here for cover 4 last season. Every 4 weeks we did that podcast, and every 4 weeks I brought up tight end and said how tight end was the next step in this offense, and we needed a legitimate seam threat who could create after the catch and watch us go to work. I knew what the addition of John. I called that long before y'all even did it. So once again, I was out ahead of you. So why am I going to give you props when I'm sitting up here on YouTube and y'all are getting paid millions of dollars and I'm ahead of the curve than you guys are compared, and it's your offense that y'all created? So why am I going to give you props for that? I'm not going to give you props for that. So I say all of that to say this. Oh, what were all those resumes and what were all they developed good for with us? So is Tyler Warren, is Gunnar Helm, who I think people are really sleeping on the ceiling of that kid, is Gunnar Helm, is, Mason Taylor, is Aronde Gadsden the second or third, whatever it is, Aronde Gadsden, the old Aronde Gadsden, his son. Are they all a wasted pick because we don't know? The best guy that they've had to develop over the last couple of years, this group with these resumes at tight end, was Elijah Higgins. and they let him walk out the door. They said bye-bye, and he's actually contributed to Arizona while we're looking for Julian Hill to do something other than take a pre-snap penalty, a bad angle and whiff on a block, or not make a play in the pass game. Thoughts on Elijah Arroyo from Miami? Again, see previous point. Would you trust them? I'm not saying it can't happen because these guys have a history, but man, all that history y'all have with tight ends that you had coming here, it has resulted to nada, zilch, zero for us in Miami. Jonnu Smith, I called that a year before y'all even made that move, so I'm not even going to give you props for that. Okay, I don't get paid millions of dollars by the Miami Dolphins. And if I did, point proven, we would be better off. And all the people that hated on me for wanting to move up for Brock Bowers, imagine if we would have signed Jonnu Smith and drafted Brock Bowers. You know what? Imagine what our offense would have done this year. Holy jeez. Whew. Oh, man. Anyways, it is what it is. Don't ever let it be what it ain't. Let's get into it all right now. We got a lot to discuss because they're trying to show us some changes. They're trying to show us some changes. Before we do, are we potentially getting 3 more third-round picks with our DC and the other GM potentially being hired away? Philippe, I will talk about that. Stick around, my friend. After we're done talking about Crossman and everything, I will get into that. Don't worry. I will cover it all for you with comp picks. But before we do get into everything, shout out to BetUS for sponsoring this video. Which 2024-2025 non-playoff teams will make the playoffs next year? Will the Dolphins and Bengals replace the Steelers and the Broncos in the wild card race? Will Penix finally lead the Falcons to finishing off the NFC South race and winning? Will Dallas get back to being a force in the NFC East with a healthy Dak Prescott? Let me know in the chat and in the comment section which 2024-2025 non-playoff teams will make it next year. Also, go to betus.com right now if you're looking for a sportsbook app for this weekend's playoff action. BetUS has you covered. Go to betus.com right now. Use promo code YouTube150. That's YouTube150. And get your first 3 deposits matched by 150%, up to $2,000. Some of the quickest payouts in the industry. 24/7 customer service. Shout out to BetUS for sponsoring the channel. All right, let's get into it. And before we do, Franklin Higgs has a question. He said, good evening, Reason. Just getting in. But wow, we're going to talk about that right now. Good timing, Franklin. You're just getting in here. All right, so let's get into it right now. Franklin's got questions. We will try to find him some answers. So, the Dolphins have fired special teams coordinator Danny Crossman and wide receivers coach and pass game specialist Wes Welker. Danny Crossman, obviously a holdover since the Boyer holdover, since Flores was fired. Him and Boyer were held over. Boyer's been gone. Crossman's now finally out the door with them. Wes Welker was brought over from San Francisco when McDaniel got the job, right? He's part of the initial filling out of his staff. So I have some opinions on this. All right. Now, this is what I'm just going to read to you what Mike McDaniel did release a statement. All right. He said, I'm grateful for Danny's contributions and dedication to the Dolphins over the course of many seasons, as well as the numerous ways he helped me as a head coach, Mike McDaniel said. I also want to thank Wes for his investment here. This was not a decision I came to lightly, but as I have evaluated the season areas where we must improve, I believe the change is needed, and I'm motivated to do what is best for the team as we move forward. So, Danny Crossman. I mean, there's just simply no question about it. Danny Crossman's been here since 2019. He's got like 20 years of experience. I don't know how. The Dolphins special teams were number 31. Were 31st ranked out of 32 in 2023. Number 27 in 2022. Number 22 in 2021. But we're number 7 in 2020. And that was probably because of holdover because of Rizzy. I get it. Jason Sanders was a bright spot, but I think he did it despite poor coaching from Danny Crossman. I think, a special teams coordinator would have moved off of, I know we saw some better play from Jake Bailey, but I don't even think we would have had a chance. Like, the fact that the punt god, Matt Araiza, was out there and you didn't even make a move for it and you let the rich get richer with the Chiefs is absolutely lunacy to me. Lunacy to me. Okay, a team you got to beat. Absolutely idiotic. I think Malik Washington emerged this year as a return specialist. But if you followed me and you saw my draft evaluation, you saw how I spoke of him after we were drafted, I thought that was something he could already contribute from, and that's what had showed up on the film. I think he did it despite Danny Crossman. We had special teams was legitimately costing us games. I talked about that Week 14 game in Buffalo. Tua had the second highest. When you look at Tua and Buffalo, right? Tua had the second highest EPA from a quarterback against Buffalo in the McDermott era. All right? He had up until that point in Week 14, he had the ninth highest EPA from a quarterback of any quarterback all season, and the 8 in front of him all won their games. The problem was, you had the Dolphins defense. It had its worst game of the season in terms of EPA, right, up until that point. But the special teams. The Dolphins posted a special teams EPA in that game of minus 7.79. That was the 7th worst single game performance against Buffalo since 2017. So in 123 games since 2017, that was the worst special teams EPA performance in the McDermott era. Like, you had Bailey's punt, the punt return that lost yardage, the kick return that was tackled inside the 20-yard line. Like, it just wasn't good from special teams. And the analytics back the tape. Like, special teams was actually losing us stuff. Like, look at the Green Bay game, right? Defense comes up, huge stop, and muff punt return by Malik Washington. Malik made like 3 mistakes all season. And one of them happened to be a massive special teams error. And Danny Crossman would pass the buck every year, right? He would say, oh, because guys are getting hurt, you're plucking from my special teams unit to play them on defense. And so I'm having to go with even like worse special teams. That was his excuse almost every year. Like Anthony makes a point. Never understood why Morstead wasn't brought back. It didn't make sense. I told all you guys, in digging and getting information after that Green Bay game, because I have a direct link to someone on that staff, I was told that the Green Bay staff, they didn't even think Danny Crossman was worthy of being a high school coach. They thought, we're talking like, they said it's high school coach level or worse. And like, I would hear that, oh, we're sticking with a bad punter because he's a good holder. Why don't you find a good holder and a good punter? There's an idea for you. Or, I don't know, let's go back to how it was 15 years ago when the backup quarterback would hold the football. We're giving up on a guy that can tilt the field in our favor just because he can hold the football. It made no sense. It made 0 sense. So Danny Crossman, good riddance. Like, get out of here. Be gone with. You can go coach on Gase's high school team that he coaches. Good night, goodbye, and good luck. Bang. Okay? Now, next. Wes Welker. This is where I kind of have a little bit more pause. Now, Wes Welker, the problem with Wes Welker, I think this should have been Frank Smith. I think Frank Smith should have been the one out. Darrell Bevell is interviewing for the OC job under Stefanski in Cleveland. I would rather have Darrell Bevell than Frank Smith. What does Frank Smith do? He's another reason why no game data. What does he do? All right? He has his hands in the tight end room. We know that. I went over earlier what the results have been at tight end. Okay? Nothing to write home about. He has his hands in the offensive line. Were you one of the people that enabled the idea of Robert Hunt being filled in for by Liam Eichenberg? Were you one of the people that enabled? Was it Greer saying, hey, we need to make this work? Mike saying, I can make it work. And you saying, yeah, we can make it work, Mike. With Robert Jones being the contingency plan for Isaiah Wynn when y'all knew he had a setback? You tell me. What are you doing? You're not calling plays. You could have gone out and gotten experienced OC with play calling background, whether in-house with Bevell or obviously with an external hire. And then you could have promoted Wes Welker. The problem with Wes Welker too is you got Bevell and Frank Smith ahead of you. Like, I don't know why you're showing loyalty to Frank Smith when he's done nothing. And you could actually get an adult in that room and someone to help you out, Mike. You know, you want to know what a G move would have been, Mike? You want to know what it showed me you're taking it seriously, Mike? If you would have canned that clown, Frank Smith, and you would have turned around and you would have said, yeah, you know what? I'm going after Doug Peterson as my OC. That would have showed me how serious you're taking this. Because Doug Peterson ain't going to get offered a head coaching job anytime soon. Some guys are just meant to be OCs. All right? This man has won a Super Bowl. He won a Super Bowl in Philadelphia. You could have added this as your OC. You could have brought a legitimate adult in the room and a guy who you could have leaned on when it was getting rough for you with play calling if it happens. Doug Peterson, that would have been the G move. The G move would have been not firing Welker. The G move would have been, Frank, you're gone. I'm sorry. Boom. Here you go. Because what it feels like is Welker taking the fall because of Tyreek. You ready, Eminem? You watching this? Listen. He is. If the GM, like Greer says, if things don't start off right, we're going to make you the play caller. And B, by the way, you're going to be the highest paid offensive coordinator in the NFL. Money talks, bullshit walks. Okay? And he's going to realize you got a chance here. If we don't like what we're seeing from Mike early on, we're going to mandate that he makes a concession, that he gives up play calling and you step in. So, I'm just saying, that's what I would have done. But, I digress. Is Welker taking the fall for Tyreek? Is he getting the blame? Is that why Welker is falling on the sword because of Tyreek? That's the one you want to blame? Tyreek, who's had career years under Welker, that's the guy we're going to blame? I mean, let's talk about it. Jalen Waddle had his best years under Wes Welker. Tyreek Hill, best years under Wes Welker. I'll do even better. Ready for this? River Craycraft contributed more than anyone would have thought under Wes Welker. I'll do even better. Trent Sherfield. Look at how he contributed here compared to how he contributed when he went with Josh Allen. Malik Washington. Look at what Malik's turning into. I do not think Welker being fired. I think Frank Smith deserves to be fired more than Wes Welker. I'll say it. So it's Welker's fault Tyreek's being tardy. It's Welker's fault that Tyreek's being a diva. It's Welker's fault that Tyreek's being exactly what we've seen Terrell Owens and diva receivers in the past do. No, that's in Tyreek's DNA. Welker is not a babysitter. That's on the player. At some point, you got to blame the player. Welker can sit there and say, bro, the guy had career years under me. Back-to-back almost 1,700 plus yard seasons. What are we talking about? Mike, it's for you to game plan and get him involved creatively. Not me. I'm not the play caller. I'm not the play designer. That's you, Mike. So I'm going to defend Welker. Because I think the natural move was either you get Darrell Bevell or you hire Doug Peterson. And if you got Darrell Bevell, I would have promoted Welker. Look at what Malik Washington has turned into by the end of the season. Come on. Was it Welker's fault OBJ checked out? We all feared this. Again, when are we going to blame the players? What, is he got to hypnotize these guys or offer them bribes to play? If a player checks out, a player checks out. It's about, and if they're checking out because if they're not being involved, that's not Welker's issue. That's a Mike McDaniel issue. Thank you very much. Does Tyreek being late game one tell us what we needed to know and we all missed it? Well, I mean, brother, he was dealing with the, police, dude. You know? What tells you what you need to know, Kenneth, is go back to the season finale against the Jets. I believe it was Friday. Correct me if I'm wrong, chat. But I believe it was Friday. It was Friday or Thursday, but I'm pretty sure it was Friday. Tyreek Hill missed practice with an illness, but then it got posted on TikTok that he was working the cash register at his Soul Runner store. See, that could make sense to me too, H-Dog. Welker could have won it out because of Frank Smith and Bevell ahead of him. That would make sense. But if you look at how Rappaport worded it, they both got fired. Oh, yeah, you're right, Kenneth. He was speeding and he said he was late. But he was like, but it wasn't, it was like 10 a.m., bro. It was like 10:30, 11 a.m. It wasn't like, he was late, like, you know what I mean? I get what you're saying, though. It's not like he was late for game time, but he was late for the time you guys show up and start getting prepared behind the scenes at the arena. I get what you're saying. So, I get it. It's me, says you think Tyreek drives the speed limit on the reg. No. But, so I think Doug Peterson or Darrell Bevell and firing Frank Smith was the move on the offensive side. Danny Crossman. Now, I'm not going to keep this for insider info because I actually had a viewer. Shout out to Gary. Gary's been watching me since 2019. All right, Gary Lombardi. He's the homie. Absolutely love Gary. He's a good dude. He always supported me. He's always supported the channel. So shout out to you, Gary. Nothing but love, my friend. He says he went to Penn State with Darren Rizzi's daughter. And he says that, back in the day, he used to pick her brain a bit. And just from what he was told, the relationship with Rizzi in the front office is kind of broken. So he's saying he doesn't think, from what he understands and, his friendship with Darren Rizzi's daughter, he doesn't think Rizzi would want to work with or for Greer and Ross. So Darren Rizzi might actually not be an option. So shout out to Gary, Penn State alum. Had a tough night yesterday, having a tougher day today because Darren Rizzi might not come back. So, shout out to Gary for filling me in. So that's almost directly from the horse's mouth in terms of, that's from Darren Rizzi's daughter that, his relationship with the front office is broken. He got passed over for the head coach job. He wasn't happy about it. So he's probably not going to come back. Now, again, like I said earlier with Doug Peterson, when someone was like, well, if he doesn't call plays, he won't come here. Money talks and bullshit walks. So all you got to do is put the bag in front of him. And I'm sure, there you go. But what's crazy is if, even if Greer was gone because he doesn't have a great relationship with Ross, he might not have come back anyways. Now, I do agree with this. The only blame Welker gets is for pounding the table for Eazy-E. Yes, the development of Eazy-E hasn't worked out. But again, is that a Welker issue or is that a conditioning issue? How much has Eazy-E been able to stay healthy? And this is a bad thing, Tyson, because you're dead on. This is why McDaniel would never hire Doug Peterson. Because he would see Doug Peterson as a threat for his play calling duties. I've said this before. I've said it privately. I've said it publicly, and I'll say it again. We are seeing stubborn tendencies that we hated with Flores, just in different ways with McDaniel. You got to be up. Listen, I'm going to tell you this much. If I knew my ass is out on the street, if I don't do anything this year, brother, I'm pulling every resource I can. Just saying. You're going to go, your loyalty to guys like Frank Smith is going to cost you your job when you could go out and get a veteran like Doug Peterson. And Doug Peterson, again, look at Doug Peterson. Why wouldn't a guy like Doug Peterson want to come to Miami? Right? He played here in 95. Played here in 93, 94. Right? So, and he played here in 91. So he's got a little bit of a history with us. I would be putting my ego aside to try and save my ass and win and prove that y'all weren't wrong. So we'll see. We will see what happens. Now, let's ugly. Let's get into more about the firings. Here's from the Sun Sentinel. The Dolphins announced Friday they fired special teams coordinator Danny Crossman and wide receivers coach Wes Welker. I'm grateful for Danny's contributions and dedication to the Dolphins over the course of many seasons, as well as the numerous ways he helped me as a head coach, Mike McDaniel said in a statement. I also want to thank Wes for his investment here. This is not a decision I came to lightly, but as I evaluated the season areas where we must improve, I believe that change is needed and I'm motivated to do what is best for the team as we move forward. Crossman has been the Dolphins special teams coordinator since 2019 and has more than 20 years of NFL experience. The Dolphins recently found themselves among the league's worst special teams units according to widely accepted rankings by Rick Gosselin, the longtime respected ex-Dallas Morning News NFL writer. The Dolphins special teams were number 31 in the 32-team NFL in 2023, number 27 in 2022, number 22 in 2021, and number 7 in 2020. Although Sanders ended as a bright spot this year, making 27 consecutive field goals, including 9 of 50 or more yards, he had his shaky moments early, and the Dolphins special team units were plagued by penalties for the first half of the season. Remember, even Ciaran Neal, who's known as a really good special teams player, he was taking penalties for us, and bad ones. The most infamous moment for special teams in the past few years had to be the so-called butt punt when punter Thomas Morstead punts into the backside of a blocker wide receiver Trent Sherfield and out of the end zone for a safety against Buffalo in 2022, a game the Dolphins won 21-19. The play, which came with less than 2 minutes left, cut the Dolphins' lead to 21-19, and because it was a safety, gave the Bills the ball back after the free kick. The high point for special teams under Crossman might have been the so-called Mountaineer shot that came against Philadelphia in December 2019, Crossman's first season. The fake field goal featured holder punter Matt Hack throwing a touchdown pass to Sanders in the second quarter of a Dolphins 37-31 win over the Eagles. The Dolphins were trailing 13-7 and attempted a chip shot field goal from the 1-yard line when they executed what would now be named the NFL Clutch Performance Play of the Year for 2019 at the annual NFL Honor Show. Welker, who has held his title since 2022, seemed well-liked, but his two top players, Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, were plagued by drops the past 2 seasons. Hill had 12 drops this last season, second most in the league, and Waddle had 8 drops this season, which was tied for 9th. The Dolphins' passing game was shut down this season largely because defenses played the too high safety scheme, which basically allowed them to double-team both Hill and Waddle in deep throws, and they pressed them at the line of scrimmage to disrupt the timing of the passing game. The combination derailed Miami's offense. It should be noted, the Dolphins were 8-0 last season when Hill had 100 or more yards receiving, and 2-7 when he had 99 or fewer. The Dolphins were 3-0 when Hill had 100 or more receiving yards, and 5-9 when he had 99 or fewer receiving yards. Perkins, I believe, wrote that article, and Chris, I hate to be the one to tell you, but your receivers not getting involved because of too high looks. Again, that falls on Mike McDaniel, brother. That falls on Mike McDaniel's play calling, game planning, and scheming. It's up to McDaniel to call the plays, whether that means creatively using motion, whatever that is, to get those non-disrupted releases. But also, it's up to Mike McDaniel through his play calling, his game planning, and scheming to take the underneath stuff, game plan for taking the underneath stuff, the middle of the field stuff, but to also get those guys involved with short and intermediate routes. Right? Shallow crossers, drags, quick ins, slants, whatever you got to use, What you got to use, level concepts, whatever concepts you got to use as well. That's up to McDaniel. Now the drops, okay, I could see you giving that to Wes Welker. I could see Welker taking the fall for that, even though Tyreek Hill's been dropped central since he got here, and I've been the only one talking about it since he got here. It just became finally a subject of conversation this season. So, again, where I'm at, I would have fired Frank Smith and Danny Crossman. Was Welker perfect? No. Like I just said, yes, you could put the drops on him, 110%. That is the stuff you could put. Yeah, you could put releases on him and them beating the jams, but they're sized the way they are, and that's why you guys have so many motions installed. Again, that's a Mike McDaniel thing. And you know what? You wouldn't have, if you could run the ball, would you be seeing the too high stuff as much? Mike McDaniel's not forcing defenses to load the boxes. He's not doing any favors to the receiver unit or his receiver coach, but someone's got to take the fall. Again, should have been Frank Smith. Just my opinion. Okay? Just my opinion. Now, Reggie McKenzie. Look at this. Diana Rossini, because the Titans' first round of GM interviews, today they had Reggie McKenzie, right? And you look at Reggie McKenzie as he's one of the main executives. Him and Marvin Allen are the right-hand men for Chris Grier, right? Senior personnel executive for us right now. Obviously, he's been with us since 2019. So, here's the deal with this, and this is why it matters. Diana Rossini said the Titans are going through the process, and I'd expect Reggie McKenzie to get a lot of support. She considers him the lead candidate for Tennessee. Why does that matter? If Reggie McKenzie goes to the Tennessee Titans, guys and gals, we get 2 third-round compensatory picks. We will get a third-round pick in 2025 and a third-round pick in 2026 due to the Rooney Rule if Reggie McKenzie leaves. Now, if Anthony Weaver leaves, we do not get 2 compensatory picks because he hasn't been with us for 2 years. If Weaver leaves after next season, we would get 2 picks. If Marvin Allen leaves, we would get 2 picks. So Reggie McKenzie could be on the way out. And I'll be honest with you. If we lose Anthony Weaver, Darrell Bevel, Reggie McKenzie, that's not good. Like, thank God we got Marvin Allen. And if we lose Marvin Allen, that's even worse. Anthony Weaver, I look at the landscape. I don't think you're going to find a coordinator as good as Anthony Weaver out there right now for the defense. I really honestly don't. Reggie McKenzie, I don't know if they're, because if Marvin Allen stays, I don't even know if they're going to bother replacing McKenzie. Hopefully they do, and hopefully it's going to be hard to find another great football mind like Reggie McKenzie. Darrell Bevel, what he's done with Tua and what he's done with McDaniel, I think that Bevel loss would hurt. I really do think that Bevel loss would hurt, man. I don't want to lose Darrell Bevel. I think if you want me to rank it, Anthony Weaver is damn near irreplaceable as I look at the market. I don't want to lose Anthony Weaver. Darrell Bevel is going to be very hard to replace. And Reggie McKenzie is going to be very hard to replace as well. Those could be tough losses in this offseason for the Miami Dolphins. They really could. I don't know how Danny Crossman has a job. When I went back to the Ravens game on Tua comeback and they allowed an opening kick touchdown. Reek washed, suspect hands, and ready to retire. He not here to play, only promote his brand. Wow, Hallie's harsh. I wouldn't say Reek is washed. It's a little extreme. But I agree with you. I don't know how Danny had a job this long. And I'll tell you my theory. Danny Crossman, from what I understand, Danny Crossman and Boyer, they basically turned on Flores in that last year. Like, it was pretty much decided in October they were going to move off Flores. That's why Flores shut out every one of the coaches when it came to game planning, and the only one he was letting in was Gerald Alexander, the DB's coach, who ended up leaving when Flores did too, right? From what I think, Boyer and Crossman sold Flores out, became buddy-buddy with Garfinkel and Greer, and that's why Garfinkel and Greer said, we'll protect you when we hire McDaniel, and we'll carry you over when we hire a new coach, and they did that. That's what I feel like. Honestly, that's what I feel like went down and what happened. It was just my opinion. So, I don't know. You tell me what you think. Shelby says that's effed up. That's how it happens. Politics, man. Like, I heard, with the Deshaun Watson stuff, I heard Brian Flores went over Greer's head, and because remember, the old GM, the GM was Caserio, right? The GM of the Texans was Caserio, Nick Caserio. I think he's still the general manager of the Texans, if I remember correctly. But remember, Caserio and Flores had a relationship. So from what I understand, Flores went over Greer's head when Greer had looked into the trade and said, no, it's going to cost too much money. It's going to cost too much draft capital. Flores went over his head, contacted Caserio, worked out a trade, brought it to Stephen Ross. Greer found out, and Greer lost his mind. And Greer flipped his lid. Politics, man. Politics. It was dog-eat-dog there when Flores was there, I'm telling you. Now, with Welker, who could replace Welker? That hire is probably going to be coming from the interior. They've got offensive assistants all over the place, right? You've got Max McCaffrey, Roman Sapalu, Jonathan Cross, Parks Frazier, Rob Everett. Now all these guys are working with different things, but it's all titles, right? So, Max McCaffrey makes sense, et cetera, et cetera. So they have offensive assistants galore. That's probably the hiring for Wes Welker and replacement's probably going to come internally, right? Danny Crossman. I am interested to see what happens internally with that, because are they going to hire like Ronnie? Are they going to promote Ronnie Bradford? He's their senior special teams assistant right now. Is that who they're going to be? Are they just going to promote Ronnie Bradford, or are they going to go out and hire someone? So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out over the next few weeks. All right. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you're new. Football this weekend, playoff football. Enjoy it. I'll be back potentially Sunday for a special show. So be on the lookout for that. Fins up all day, every day. Appreciate all y'all for coming through. Shout out to BetUS for sponsoring this video. We'll catch y'all in the next one. Have a fantastic evening, everyone.